Hey everyone, my name is Brian Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003, and this is Calgary Living. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decision specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in. On today's show, I had the pleasure of interviewing my longtime friend, Ben Edie. Ben trained aeronautical engineer technologist, and today he works primarily in the movie industry by designing, building special effects and props for such movies as Star Trek Beyond, Maze Runner, Death Note, Predator, and most recently, the yet-to-be-released Ghostbusters Afterlife. He has a long history of being the guy to go to when all others tell you cannot be done. He's a freelance engineering consultant, and he's helped and designed and built at least a couple of human-powered vehicles of our mutual friend, Greg Colajesics, which have been for world records. He's designed and built two of the largest rotating sets in movie history, and today he's considered a world expert 3D computer-aided designer, where he's consulted some of the biggest software companies in the industry like SolidWorks and Creo and PTC. He's also been on reality TV in Canada's greatest know-it-all. Recently, Ben's been having a lot of fun making faux chainmail out of craft foam and selling that quite successfully. Cosplayers and fashion designers as well. Currently, he's working on adapting it for motorcycle jackets and making it out of leather. To sum it all up, Ben's a kind of guy where no moss gathers. Ben, thanks so much for meeting with me today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Ben, it is fun. I've always been interested with you since the first time I seen you carrying a camera and belt strapped to you with our mutual friend, Greg Colajesic. I don't know when we would have first met. It would have probably been in 2006 or 7.
Yeah, probably his second world record attempt we did. I think it was on the reservoir, because I don't think you were out in the bike record, were you?
Yeah. No, it would have been on the reservoir. Yeah. I've never been on the bike attempts with him and his world record there.
Yeah.
Just recently, I asked you to be a guest on the podcast, and I asked for your bio. And I read it, and I was like, wow, idea. So I was speaking to my wife last night at supper, and my son, and I was telling him, guys, I'm interviewing Ben Edie, and listen to this bio. Like, I have no idea about these kind of interests that you have. And I'm going to sound like a complete, I just know nothing about, you guys that were like kind of Star Trek type guys.
Yeah,
it's a different realm.
We're I like to call myself an engineer. I'm an engineer because the reality is that there's the growing up nerd in me is infused in everything I do.
And did it I grew up with folks just like you. You're probably just a little bit younger than I am, but growing up in High River. Was this like growing up? You say growing up kind of nerdy. Is that how you would say it? I mean, was Star Trek part of your life? I see you have a Ghostbusters hat on.
Yeah. Well, Star Trek. I always, just like any sci-fi. Of course, I was always interested in it, and I'm not a super well-to-do family, so I always had the 3 channels and the rabbit ears and Star Trek was one of those shows that always seemed to come on for reruns and stuff like that. So you absorb into that. And I found that, occasional 2 a.m, Dr. Phil would show up and, those sorts of things. And I would just get enamored with the idea of future worlds or a different, or, dystopia or utopia. You got to look at all these things. They're fun to imagine, because when you start imagining things, you start looking at what could be, and because of what could be is what kind of drives me is, what's possible. Let's push the limits a little bit here.
And then I assume shortly after high school, you studied and became an aeronautical engineering technologist. Tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about, well, how would you introduce yourself these days, Ben? If you, how do you introduce yourself at a cocktail party, for example?
This is one of the hardest things to do because I do things online. I do engineering. I do, mechanical design, 3D print. Like I do so many different things. It becomes difficult. And it's not like I used to do something and I'm now doing something different. I'm generally doing 5 things at once. So when I go and meet people, it's usually very similar. It's very hard for me to describe, so bear with me because it might take some time. But I think usually the best descriptor a friend of mine gave me is that way back when there was a career called an inventor, and that kind of is what I do. But at the same time, I think people get thinking, well, if you're an inventor, you make things. Well, yeah, I make videos, or I make virtual things, I make real things, I do all sorts of, I make art. So you can't, being an inventor maybe doesn't encapsulate it all that well, but it's the best go at it right now.
Interesting. And so inventor, and then so I just went on your YouTube. It's the first time I really knew it existed.
Yeah.
Just like you, some people think that I have a strong social media presence, and I'm sure you hear the same thing. But guys like you and me probably don't pay attention that much to what others are doing, I suspect. I was shocked to see that you have like almost 10,000 YouTube subscribers.
Well, yeah, it's been a long few years and stuff, but yeah, it's people are interested in what I do. Like I used to teach computer-aided design via video, and I'd release stuff on YouTube, and people followed me from that. Honestly, I got tired of it, and I needed something new and reinvented myself. Not so much reinvented myself. I still do CAD, but teaching people, not so much. So that's where a lot of subscribers came from. But, recently I've been just doing some cosplay stuff, like building fake armor for costumes, and it's a lot of fun. And I seem to have struck a note with a few people. And because of that, subscriptions are going up. It's also led me to manage to get on Adam Savage's show, the Mythbusters guy.
Right.
That's, but that's a convoluted story in itself because I was working on Ghostbusters, and he was also doing some work on Ghostbusters, so I got an intro that way. But when he showed up to set and stuff, he come to my trailer to interview me, and we were talking for a bit, and then come around coffee break, I'm in my trailer fixing some stuff, and he shows up and he says hi. I thought that was kind of neat. Lunchtime, he shows up my trailer, and I'm like, well, he's stopping by a lot. There's some other people over here might be interested. He's like, no, I really like hanging out with you. I was like, what? This is cool.
Wild. Good.
Yeah.
You've one of the most recent shows that you worked on. It sounds like Ghostbusters, the release Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Yeah, that was like so much fun. Oh my god!
So where was that filmed?
It was filmed in and around the Calgary area, strangely enough. Yeah. So this is the first movie that I've done in my hometown. So when I found out it was here in town, it was kind of a serendipitous moment where I ended up calling around, finding out who's who, and then got an introduction to the directors. Showed up, and that day they said, we're desperate. We need this guy that can do electronics and some engineering and be able to take care of some props. And I'm like, I'm your man. And I showed them a resume, and they were just like, you are the guy we need. This is awesome. And I hired on the spot. So that was a lot of fun.
And how long did that keep you busy for? Is that like a year or a month or a day or a week? I have no idea.
Well, when you're doing a movie, they usually set up it depends on the whole thing, but the window of opportunity for me is generally between 6 and 8 months is what a movie will do. And you end up working incredibly hard. Like you're doing 12-hour days, 5 days a week minimum, coming to the end of the show when they're really, and you're looking at 16, 18-hour days for 6-7 days a week. So the pay again is quite substantial just in overtime alone, but it also burns you out. So the way a lot of movie people work is that you do 1, maybe 2 shows back to back, and then you take a few months holiday. But what you've earned is enough to sort of float you through that little period of time. And then, you kind of put yourself back on the market and do what you can find after that. So, I've been working out in Vancouver a lot, and I'd fly back and forth. I'd get an apartment out there and do movies out there, come back on weekends. And nearing the end of the show, the last couple of months of the show, family doesn't get to see me at all. So when Ghostbusters was here in town, I'm like, yeah, I get to work from home. One thing I thought though was funny is I told my wife, is that you're not going to see me, you're missing me every weekend, but it's really not going to be all that much different than me being out in Vancouver. And she kind of laughed. And she realized 2 weeks in that, I'd end up showing up at 1 a.m. because work ended up late. And then she would get up and leave. I'd get the kids to school. I'd go back to bed, then I'd leave. So we'd cross paths in our sleep, but that's about it. And she'd see me on weekends and she's like, this is crazy. I'm like, I told you, it's a fun lifestyle if you really enjoy it, but there are people that aren't cut out for it. And I'm just lucky to be one of the ones that is.
You've been doing it for a long time, and you're obviously cut out. What are the age of your kids at this point? They must be teenagers by now.
Well, I've got one teenager, a 14-year-old, and I've got an 8-year-old. They're both girls, doing quite well. It's interesting times. It's now I'm doing some stuff where I'm selling stuff online. So I'm at home, but now, homeschooling and, making sure that, the mental health of your children is good and stuff. I've got a newfound respect for all the school teachers out there. If you're a school teacher, thank you. Oh my God. I had no idea how intense it is. And it's not like my girls are bad or anything, but there's just kids being kids. But if you get 30 of them, it's got to be crazy.
I don't know. We're here in the middle of this COVID time. I guess it's like April, just after Easter weekend, April 13th, Monday, I think. And I just cannot imagine having some kids your age at home. My kids are in their 20s. But I guess all you parents are doing this, and teachers, and figuring out how the technology works to keep the kids busy a few hours a day and proceeding in their academics. So is it going well in your house? Did you learn some new things in terms of getting your kids into school, or
you know what is one of our oldest is ADHD, and we've got everything kind of managed and everything's going well, but she's always struggled with school a little bit, and I did too as a kid. Now I've always been told I'm intelligent. I'm not sure if I buy into it, but I'll go with it.
I believe.
But the one thing I found though is that we bring her home, and then the school says, okay, so we're going to give essentially homework online and have some courses, and the kids are going to have to self-study and go for that. And I was kind of like, is she going to do well? She is killing it.
Really?
This is one of these things where, in our eyes, I'm not sure if we can homeschool or what we can do, but I know the correspondence school is something that my kid would be able to kill. But having to sit in a classroom and listen to somebody, and I'm ADHD as well, is painful, and it takes an incredible amount of effort to go through that. Now imagine going through that 4 or 5 classes a day becomes exhausting, and you can't really keep up to that. I found in college there was a few courses where I opted out and did correspondence, and again I was doing awesome. If you give me a book, tell me what I need to learn, test me afterwards, I'm golden. And it turns out the same for our daughters. Long story short is that this is one of these golden eggs that kind of comes out of these situations. How we're going to move forward with it next year when school comes back, I'm not sure, but these are insights that are things that are very powerful for families and people in general.
Wow, that is interesting. That is interesting to see how things will sort of fall, how things will change. Yeah. Neat. So getting back to you, and they're doing this. Is it chainmail? It costs. It's not chainmail, but it's not.
So a while ago, I was asked to make some chainmail for a costume, and making chainmail by hand with wire is incredibly painful, arduous, takes a massive amount of time.
And my first cousin in Prince Edward, David Howard, does it, and I think really well as far as I see. He does costumes in chainmail.
Yeah, and but if you look at costume, the thing strange with that. So I was on that, and I had another tangent because I'm all over the place, ADHD, and the fact that I'm generally doing 2 or 3 jobs at once. I had to do some research, and I was looking at knitting, and I saw this zigzag sketch. And I was just like, I wonder if I cut this to the foam, would I be able to establish this as something that I can knit together? So I came up with, this is a modified design of just the string. And then when you put it all together, you get something that looks like this, but it weighs nothing. And don't get me wrong, it's not like it's going to protect you in battle, but it's reasonably strong. So I did this and I was laser cutting it because I've got like laser cutters and 3D printers because of my work. It's just something I do all the time. And people were asking for it. And then when Adam came to the Ghostbusters set, I showed him this and he was like, this is a game changer. You can come out to San Francisco and show me. So, I went up there and showed him. And from there, there was so much interest on his video. I figured, well, I know how to set up a website and a web store. Let's see if I can laser cut them. It'll take me so much time and I can produce this much. And then first day it became very apparent that there was a need or a want for this stuff. And because of that, I realized that laser cutting was not going to be fast enough. So I had to reinvent everything. We came up with a die cutting system to die cut this out of foam. Trying to get the die made and finding a company that could do that. That was to put it in a good light, was a challenge and a learning experience. And in a bad light, was frustrating and huge, but I don't give up. Once I have an objective, I don't stop. And it might be a fault if I failed before. I fail all the time. But this was just one of those where I guess I got lucky or experience or contacts. But yeah, so here I am selling a bunch of this stuff online, and is it a full-time income? No. Does it have potential to be that? Yeah. So who knows? The side note is I've been asked if I can make another leather. We've made some leather templates and tried it, and it's incredibly strong. And it's strong enough that there are some people that were asking me, could you make me a motorcycle jacket out of this? So that I've got a leather jacket that skids on the pavement if I get in an accident, but also breathes. And I'm like, well, okay, well. And then some fashion industry people got a hold of me and said, hey, can we try this and make some fashion stuff? And, suddenly all these weird connotations of what you've made is coming out. You've been talking about using this as an insulation medium in between two sheets of fabric, becomes super light, but gives you really good air pockets. There's all sorts of weird stuff. I did go for hours on it, but I won't bore you with it.
Remember, Ben, years and years ago, maybe it was not, well, actually, I want to come back to me saying years and years ago, but about 10 years ago, you invited me to some pub on, maybe it was 16th Street Northwest, and you were doing kind of a focus group on, I'd sort of see, I completely forget, but it was brand new to me that someone would do this sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it seems like sort of common these days that something like that might happen. It was almost more like, I'm Ben, these are all my skills, and, what kind of path am I going down? Do I remember that correctly?
I was launching a sort of a YouTube show when YouTube was in its infancy, and a podcast.
He was then, probably.
Yeah. And it was for Mechanical Mashup. And it was a sort of like a little series that I did with a friend of mine. And I would just showcase, a build, but I'd apply a story to it and kind of make it fun as best I could. I'm not much of a storyteller. But people took to that, and when I say it's ultimately successful, no, not in the sense that I originally started out with. I was hoping that, I could have eventually get a syndicated TV show or something of just being the crazy nutball inventor.
You eventually did. You became on reality TV, which something about some of the smartest people in Canada.
Canada's greatest know-it-all. It was a TV show where, they'd put us annoying building geeks and, data geeks and just geeks in general together and have us battle it out on different competitions. And it was a lot of fun. So yeah, ultimately the original vision was not successful. Did it get me things like onto Canada's greatest know-it-all, to put me in front of the right people, to get on to building movies and special effects? Absolutely. So in that sense, it was a success.
Cool. Neat. On that note, Ben, okay, so here I am in my almost mid-50s kind of thing. And so I was introduced to YouTube probably by you, I'm guessing like 12 years ago, 2008, maybe, or seven. I don't know when you had that thing. And so I started, like, I'm an early adopter. I started a YouTube channel and, I put stuff on it. And, today I find out, geez, I have 2 YouTube channels, like whatever. And I have like 8 subscribers or maybe 24.
Right.
Why is my question.
Uh-huh.
And then I listen to podcasts occasionally. And I hear people talking about like, young guys and maybe their late 20s or maybe they're even their late 30s. And they're talking about, and way back then I did this. And they go, oh, it must have been like 2017, like 3 years ago.
I know, right?
Like, what happened? What happened to me?
Well, the timelines and everything have progressed. There's a book called The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. If you read it, you start taking a look at, like, even computers, how there's a doubling effect every about year and a half. You got to look at the lifespan of things. Like even look at the ebb and flow of economic recessions. They used to show up every 60 years, and then they showed up every 30 years, and then they showed up every 10 years. Now they're showing up every 5 years. So there's this compression that's happening. That also applies to, like, back when you first got online, you think it was great. Then, you could stream audio and you could get audio really quickly. Then you could get video quickly. Then people could produce things like, instead of like a movie taking 2 years to fully produce and mash out, you can do it in like a year now. So everything's progressing. Things are faster. And because of that, when people say way back when, it's according to sort of intellectual volume. Yeah, it's about the same as what you and I would have considered, 10 years ago, say 5 years ago, if that makes any sense. It's still got that oomph. It's just that the lifespan of new technologies is so short that a lifetime ago can be like last year.
I know, it seems like it's.
Yeah.
So how come I only have like, okay, maybe it's 64 subscribers? Why? Like, these people who started these YouTube channels in like 2009 or 11 or 15, and they put up something and it went and they're making income from YouTube. How come that didn't happen to me, Ben?
There's a lot of different things. Now, you might see my YouTube channel successful, but it is, but you don't see the YouTube series I did, like Mechanical Mashup. You don't necessarily see all the podcasts I've done. You don't see all the written articles I've done for magazines. You don't see an awful lot. So, a little side note is I do this speech for high schools and universities, and I call it Failure Way to Success.
Oh.
And the thing is that every success that I have is built on a veritable mountain of errors and mistakes and frustration and gnashing your teeth. So if you see somebody successful at something, it's not only the proverbial 10,000 hours, it is a lifetime of errors that you've gone through. So going back to podcasting and YouTube, one of the biggest things that I've seen is I've talked to a few different people and coached a few people on this, is that you got to find out where the audience is. So your first thing that I found is the most effective thing to do is to sit down and literally write a little 1-page bio of the person that you're talking to, of the stereotypical person that's going to see your audience. So when I went into, like, say, cosplay, they're nerds, they're on YouTube, they're on Facebook, they're not so cool on Twitter, and, these sorts of things. You can give the person a name that helps because it personifies somebody. Now, once you've established that, you can figure out where they go online, or you can research where they go online. So my suggestion or idea is that the target market that you might be trying to hit is not necessarily on YouTube. Maybe they're on Vimeo, maybe they're on LinkedIn, maybe they're on Facebook, but you have to, cast a really big net and take a really good look at where it's being consumed the most, and then put 80% of your effort into that one. Don't abandon the other platforms, but it becomes really obvious generally pretty quickly where the people are. So if you see somebody with, 10,000 YouTube subscribers, that might not mean anything to you, because you need 5,000 LinkedIn people. And the quality of the people you get in your podcast too, when I did marketing and I used to do online tutorials like computer aided design, YouTube was a good marketing point for me, but LinkedIn was where I went. And I didn't have a lot of LinkedIn followers, but the followers I had were super high quality. So think of you doing a marketing campaign on, I don't know, investing. Let's take investing, for example. If I tell you I've got a YouTube channel and I've got 3 subscribers and I do investing and I'm doing awesome, you'd just chuckle and go, okay, this guy's clueless. He has no idea. If I turned around and said, these 3 subscribers that I have are Jimmy Buffett and Bill Gates and Sir Richard Branson, that changes things in a big way. So a few things we can look at is one is that your subscriber count. Look at the quality of the people in your subscriber count, and are you in the right location? These are 2 things that you really need to balance. That's sort of like where I generally start if I was coaching somebody on this.
Well, just for anyone who happened to be listening, my subscribers are so valuable. Meaning, Eddie, do you want to list or buy real estate? You're definitely going to work with me because my subscribers are so valuable. I am joking, of course.
You might be doing tongue in cheek though, because you might be surprised. You might be that one guy, and he's the one who makes you a millionaire. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, but I don't suspect my subscribers. I mean, I guess the question is, why would they subscribe to my channel? In some ways, I guess, but maybe I need to ask myself that and change it.
Or even ask people, ask people that you would like to have watching your podcast or your YouTube channel. Ask them, what would you like to see? Be honest, be brutal. Tell me that I suck. I'm willing. You have to be willing to take that in, because as soon as you are and you can accept it, then you can also go, oh, okay, because I don't know how many times I've given advice to people I thought was really harsh. Especially I was in the military for a while, and you don't have time to mess around. So you're like, you're doing this wrong, fix it and come back to me. And later they'll come back and go, that really hurt. But they've mastered the skill now. So you got to look at, all sorts of different ways of absorbing it. But back to the whole point is that find out what people want. If you want to remain on YouTube, then find out write down that persona that you want, find that persona in public and go, what would you like to see?
Well, that's interesting. And I kind of remember many years ago in your focus group there, you asking that question, what am I good at? What do I suck at? Or, something along those lines. And me going, wow, Ben's really putting himself out here. That seemed like forever ago, right?
Yeah. I'd be lying to say things like that don't take their emotional toll though. It's not like I'm invincible. It's not like I have any superpower. Do I get hurt by words? Absolutely I do. But
I've seen that too. You're a bit of an open book, and that's what's really enjoyed and appreciated.
Yeah.
Ben, getting back to Calgary Living, real estate and lifestyle.
Right.
You've made your life here. You grew up in High River. Mm-hmm. I want to bring us back to more about lifestyle here in Calgary and why Calgary for you. Can you tell me, Ben, what strikes you about living in Calgary?
I've lived temporarily all over the world, like Czech Republic and United States, here, several cities in Canada. And one of the things I've noticed is that Calgary's clean. It's super clean. If you have people come in from out of town, especially for Stampede, and they go, oh wow, you must have had 2 weeks of crews coming in and cleaning up the streets. And you're like, no, this is actually kind of messy compared to what it usually is. And they're gobsmacked over that. It's a super clean city. So it shows you that there's a lot of pride in the people that are here. So, there's that. That's one of the things. I like change. I don't like the same thing over and over again. So, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. You can joke all you want. That literally happens some days where it will change 30 degrees Celsius in a day. It's just mind boggling. And I enjoy these things. Maybe some people don't. So,
really good. And what's really easy for you these days? What's easy in your life or work or?
In regards to Calgary or just in general?
Just general, yeah.
What's really easy for me lately is just I'm at a point in my life where I'm financially stable enough that I can go out and take risks and have a dream and go, I should kind of take a shot at it. And and be able to do so with an appropriate amount of investment capital to do something like that. Although, the funny thing is I always look back and I rarely invest much. In fact, today I'm rebuilding a laser cutter. I needed a laser cutter for something, 6-8 years ago. Couldn't afford, the $20,000 machine. So I built one and it still works. So, I like the idea that I need it again. It's not running, but I can fix it. So investment capital sometimes really isn't what I'm looking for. It's just maybe the freedom to know that I can take a couple of weeks and piss around and not worry about making rent, I guess, or making the mortgage. Yeah.
Basically on that note, a little bit, talk to us a little bit about some of your real estate. What were some of your best and worst real estate decisions? I mean, you maybe just talk to us a little bit, maybe about some of your decisions, and maybe as it relates to the boom bust cycle of Calgary. Have you been lucky in the?
I've been very lucky. When my wife and I went out looking for our first house, we had bought it just in the bottom of a trough. I believe it was in what it would have been to early 2000s. I'm thinking 2000, before 2006, so 2005. And we bought a house for just a single family, small house. It had 2 bedrooms, not 3, but we were only going to have 1 kid at the time. And it was $250. And fast forward 2 years, and suddenly this thing's worth $400,000. We're like, holy man, did we get lucky there? And then, I don't miss it. Our second house, which I'm in right now, it's awesome, but we paid a fair amount for it. And the one thing that we did is, instead of selling our old houses, we put it up as a rental property. You just ruined the down payment and everything on the equity that we had in that house to buy this house. So, we're in a good spot, but, you're looking at what's happening now with the economy and stuff. And then, things that worry me is the value of my house obviously is going to go down, but how long is that long tail I'm going to have to wait for it to get to at least the same cost that we purchased it at? The second is, and this might seem frugal, but the governments aren't going to go, well, your house isn't worth that anymore, so we're going to drop the value of your house down, and then your taxes are going to go down. No, it's not going to happen. You're still going to be paying taxes, a premium on taxes on something that is, you're told the value is say $600,000, but in reality, if you sell it for $3. I don't know. It's one of these where I get confused, but I'm also, my wife is doing well at Pencor. I'm doing okay, just, being me and kind of being an independent. But, we're here for the long stay. So sitting in the house until the value is back is not a big deal. But what about the people that aren't? We've got friends that want to move that are suddenly looking at what they thought were assets to help them move are no longer assets.
Right. Ben, because 2 things I wanted to bring up from what you said. So I'm in real estate, as you know, and I just read an article today, and it's certainly not surprising to me, but as being in real estate, well, I know being an optimist is way more fun than being a pessimist.
Yeah.
Optimists, I read in real estate, do better than pessimists. And so you mentioned that, these sort of obviously, or of course, values are going to go down. I'm not sure you're right. How come you think that? And actually relating Suncor, you mentioned your wife works for Suncor. So I don't invest in the stock market. My wife does a little bit, but the one stock I've known for many, many years is Suncor. I kind of for some reason, someone told me about it many years ago when it was trading at $24 a stock. And that was more than 10 years ago. Has it gone up to maybe 50 or 70? And just a week or 10 days ago, I was talking to someone about Suncor and I said, what's the stock value? And they told me $17.
Yeah.
And today I think it's maybe around 23 or 25. It's that's kind of wild. What's happening with Suncor?
I'll be honest, I don't generally talk to my wife about stuff like that. And there's a twofold reason. One is that it's not in my wheelhouse. It's the kind of thing that makes me graze over. I get bored. And I know that Tam would love to talk about it, but it just doesn't work. The other thing is that she's in enough of a position that if I run my mouth on anything, it potentially could be a security issue. So I just try to, if I don't know anything, I can't tell you anything, and it's not going to be a problem.
Right. And why do you think, like, why is real estate going to go down in value in Calgary? Or like, is it all over the world, you think? Or do you have
I
thoughts?
think it's going to be more a global thing. You're right. And I guess if you look at it in that perspective, then if my value is going down and I wanted to move to Vancouver, the Vancouver values are going down at an equivalent rate. So it's still going to be sort of a lateral move. But there's that, and the perfect storm happening is someplace like Suncor, where you've got the OPEC and Russia fighting and trying to figure out the barrels of oil. It's at the point where a barrel of oil, you might end up being in the negative value. So they may have to pay $3 to store that barrel of oil instead of making money from it. And so a lot of these things where I don't feel Alberta is diversifying in the volume it needs to be done. Like, things you got to look at. For example, because I'm in the film industry, I totally understand I'm biased in this, but if you look at BC, they give tax breaks, and for every dollar of tax break, they receive $4. Yeah, it's $4 more net income. So in the end, it comes out to about $3 net. And Alberta, for the life of me, will sit there and they go, well, we'll change the regime from a grant to a I can't remember the word, but potentially it's a tax incentive. Sorry, grant to a tax incentive. But it only works if it's uncapped. So they capped it, which then brings it back into, it has the same effect as a grant system. And they can't see that this is an almost instantaneous thing, because I know of 3 different productions before COVID that wanted to come to Calgary, that knew that there was going to be a shortage in the workforce, but were willing to hire out of whatever patch. And things like oil patch, you've got the welders, the builders, the fabricators. Those people are desperately needed in film. So this is almost a lateral transition for a lot of people. And the workforce that could be generated from this would be massive. Yet they're sitting there going, no, we can't do that because we're investing in a pipeline. And it's so frustrating I agree there should be a pipeline. I think there should be a pipeline. I think that there should be production for that. Do I think that we need to give $7 billion in incentives and tax breaks to do this? No. Can we say do 5 and put 2 towards film, and then you're hedging your bets? You're not putting all your money into one basket. And that's where the government, I find, that's my biggest frustration of Alberta and Calgary in general, is that oil and gas is treated us well. There's no doubt about that. Is there more money to be made from it? Yes. Is it something that will eventually die off? Absolutely. So we need to invest in other things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, I'm off my podium now.
That brings us a little bit back, to like life in Calgary and, your opinions about why you live here and that sort of reason. How does your intuition, being an inventor, how does your intuition system work for you? Is that a fair question?
It is an interesting.
You're pretty much
asking me. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
I say you're very analytical and your engineer brain. So how do you meld your intuition? How do you make decisions to move forward on your projects?
That's analysis paralysis is a very real thing for me. A lot of people see me as somebody who moves forward. I generally move forward at the very last possible minute after I've analyzed the ever-living bejesus out of it and given myself the best scenario. That being said, if you'd asked me 20 years ago, 10 years ago, how I believe the intuition, I'd be saying, follow it, follow your gut. Your gut is what will do it. Because 9 times out of 10, you'll find something didn't work and you're going, no, I was telling myself this wasn't right. And it didn't feel right. That's what people see as intuition. But now, as I've gotten older, I'm finding that my intuition is based off of my life experiences. So if I can look at things and say, my gut is saying this, I go, why is my gut saying this? And it might be because, when I was working on a farm in high school, the tractor broke down and this metal pipe broke. That's why I don't think this machine is going to work, because it's not structurally sound enough. It's too similar to that. There's always something to relate to. So I'm finding myself going away from the gut instinct, not in the sense that you still don't feel it and you still don't have that voice in your head, but more into where's that voice coming from? And 9 times out of 10, it's coming from experience. And because it's coming from experience, you can quantify it. And the second you can quantify it, then you can go to somebody and go, I have this gut feeling. And they're just like, great. another gut feeling. It's not proving. You go, I had this gut feeling, but I remember back when I was on a farm, there's this pipe that broke, and this is why it didn't work. And they're like, oh, so there's meat to your gut. Oh, what? So there's knowledge. So look at your gut instinct as a trigger to memories of the past. That, I think, is more to the way I think now. Because I don't have those gut feelings, but the gut feelings are founded in something from my past.
As you were saying that, I wanted to ask you the question, Ben, do you meditate?
I try to, but being ADHD, it becomes very difficult. I'm starting to. I've just I've gotten to a point in my life where I used to look at my ADHD as a superpower, and for the most part it was. But as I'm getting older, my energy levels aren't able to cope with what the brain is doing to me. So I've gone on to some medication, and to be honest, it's broken me down to just about tears, because the calm it gives me is nuts. So maybe I can meditate now, because my mind isn't going to be going here and here and here and here and here all instantly, and I can ignore outside. Well, my ADD mind is one that I can't ignore, that I can hear a dog barking off the background. I can hear my wife's chair creaking upstairs, the fan on my computer. I know it sounds silly, but I hear all of this stuff all the time, and I can't ignore it. When I'm on the medication, however, I can ignore it. And in a lot of ways, it's bringing me to now. I can deal with the immediate things that are happening to me instead of worrying about the world and how it's affecting me.
Wow. Well, that's great. And how long have you been doing the medication? Has it been a few years or?
No, you know what? It's been a few weeks.
A few weeks?
Yeah, it's
like first time in your life, really?
First time in my life, yeah.
Have you known like your whole life?
Oh, hell yeah. Right from school and stuff. People would say it and we joke about it, but back in the 80s, it was, if you said you're ADHD, you had a mental problem. And mental problems back then were not seen as a medical issue like a broken arm that you need to fix.
Right.
They were seen as there's something wrong with you. Now it's seen as something that is something's wrong with you, and we can work with that. Right. And the knowledge in it's changed quite a bit. So I think a lot of it might have been stigma of me not taking medications, but at the same time, like say in the military, even in movies, is I can sit on a movie set and something will break, and I'm always known as the MacGyver, and I'll go, well, this guy's got tape because I was talking to him yesterday. I know it's in his backpack. He's got a flashlight. We need that pole and some string, and I can bring it all together because all of that's in my head. The average person doesn't see the world that way. They see like, well, what do I have on me? Oh, everything's out in the truck, and they go running. And that isn't going to solve the problem now. I do the MacGyver thing. They'll go, you, come here, put it together, and boom, you're done. And that's why they like me on set. So that was because of the way my ADD runs, it made me a superhero.
Right.
Did I want to medicate that? No, I didn't want to mess with it. If it ain't broke, I'll fix it. Hindsight now is I find that I still have that ability, but I'm not that, oh my God, hyperactive and putting out maybe negative energy, but like, too much energy into the environment of people around me who can't handle it. Now I think I can, be the calm superhero, not the freaked out superhero.
This is more for me than my listeners. How old are you?
Me, I'm 48.
48. So I was actually trying to figure out how much younger you are than me, and you're 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
Because when I was growing up, like in high school, like I don't even remember any conversations around, attention deficit disorder, or like, and I think it was just starting to be talked about, probably about your generation, 5 years younger. Interesting. So, how about this? What in terms of this question? How about the boom bust economy of Calgary? How do you cope with this? And do you save for a rainy day? And how does it affect your mindset?
Do I save for a rainy day? Years ago when I was on my own before my wife, absolutely not. I live paycheck to paycheck. That was just, that's the way I'm wired. If it weren't for my wife she's the OCD type, opposites attract. So she's the one who, after literally months of us dating, she realized how bad my credit rating and everything was. And she's like, I can help you out with this. But it got down to the point where I'm just like, look, I trust you enough that like, here's my paycheck, you give me an allowance. And it's been like that. I still try to pay attention to what's going on, but that's So yeah, we have a nest egg, we have savings and stuff, all because of Pam, and that's really cool. But on the boom and bust cycle, being a consultant, it's interesting because when things are really good and companies are hiring, the consultant doesn't get used as much as you would think. And as soon as things go to hell and economies are falling apart and there's a bust, is that they get rid of a lot of people, a lot of key people, and then they still have projects they need to move forward, especially in an engineering point of view. So they ask for the consultants to come in and save the day. So during recessions and busts, I find myself incredibly busy because of the way I work as a consultant. But, during boom times, I don't know. I think if you establish yourself well enough in the trough, people will still hire you because they want to kind of keep you on the Rolodex in case something happens. They knew how you saved them before. So I wouldn't say I'm immune to it, but I think the effects as an independent consultant is way less. And if I have free time, things like chainmail will come out of my head and I'll put it online and make money. So it's one of these where I don't get stuck as I have aeronautical engineering technology under my belt. I make cosplay stuff. I've worked on satellites. I've worked on baby change tables. I've done world records. I've done web properties and sold them for decent amount of money. I make online video. I just do whatever seems to suit my fancy. So because I'm not married to one thing, I can always adapt.
Yeah. Very cool. Ben, coming to the end of our interview, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Wow. I would like to know that I made a difference, and not to myself, but, I'd like to think that, ultimately I'd love to be the Da Vinci that 700 years later, they're still talking about me, but the reality does not. But if I can make a difference in some people's lives and make their lives easier in the now, then that's good enough for me for right now.
Interesting. Nice. Tell me something that is true that almost nobody else agrees with you on.
In Alberta, is that the Conservative Party needs to be replaced. Like, the current Conservative Party is not doing a good job, no matter how much you think that they are putting money toward the pipeline. Am I saying you need to go to NDP or something like that? No, I think Liberal, NDP, whoever, Conservatives, Progressive Restorative Alberta, Conservative, we need better leaders. And I don't care what party they come from, but the current situation is not great. And there's a lot of my friends that are going, well, he's awesome because he's going for a pipeline. And I'm like, but he's missing all these other opportunities because he's so laser focused.
Thank you. Yeah. So, room, desk, or car, which would you clean first?
Car.
Okay.
Because it's small and it's easy. My desk, my office, my room are complete case size, and we're talking days worth of work. The car, strangely enough, I keep fairly clean, and it's a couple of coffee cups and a bag of old McDonald's wrappers. So you've got a pure laziness, it's the car.
That makes sense to me. Ben, what advice would you give your younger self?
Stop, breathe, relax a little bit, and go and see about, currently, I know it's only been a week, but I'd say go see a doctor and try to get help for the ADD stuff.
Interesting. Very nice. So Ben, how can people reach out? So when I was I knew how to find you, and I was thinking, who's my next, guest that I really want to have on my podcast. I thought, then I just out of it, not because you came up or something. How do people? And then I did some Googling on you, and I was like, wow, look at that. I mean, I'm going to spend some time on a YouTube channel. I did. Yeah. But then, how do you have a website or an Instagram? How do you like people?
I've had many websites and stuff, and this will sound arrogant, but my name's unique enough with the last name, the way it's spelled, is that there's only one guy that really competes with me for the front page, and that's a high school musician guy in Australia. Super nice guy. But is Google my name and you'll find where I'm at, because I've got enough Google use as it is,
I
so
saw
you
that.
can find me that way. But I use my name, so it's Ben Edie, so BENEADIE. And if you do that in Twitter, on Facebook, you'll find me. On YouTube, my YouTube channel is just YouTube.com/Ben Edie. Instagram's a little different. I was trying something different. I might change it to Ben Edie, but I had a thought that what I thought was funny is I called myself the Dread Maker Roberts instead of the Dread Pirate Roberts. I can elicit the cosplay groups and make them chuckle a little bit. So, but I think my standard has been my name, so I should probably change it, but I'm not sure yet. Just a little insight I've had recently with COVID going around and stuff. And this is not just going to be COVID related, but is that suddenly all these essential workers that you see out there doing essential jobs. One thing I've found that I find desperately disappointing is that a lot of them are minimum wage workers. They're custodians, they're cooks, they're people at the drive-through window. And if they're so critical, why the certain split of here are they only making minimum wage? And you can sit there and use the education argument or years on the planet argument. And I think all of it is a bunch of BS. Is if these people are providing a service that you use, I think they should be paid accordingly, and they're not. And I'd like to see that change. So that's kind of one of the recent insights that I've had. And am I willing to spend $2 on my coffee instead of $1 to make that happen? Yes. All those big corporations out there, understand this. I'm willing to throw more money at you if you make that happen. But first, you need to make that happen.
And thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. Well, that was a fun meeting with Ben Edie. Ben's Ask. So Ben and his fellow prop makers from the Alberta Ghostbusters are collaborating to make some COVID-19 equipment. Alberta Ghostbusters.ca/COVID-19/. Learn all about what Ben and a few other folks, prop makers, are doing. What you can do, you can submit a request form if you're in a healthcare facility in Alberta and could benefit from the items. You could donate to their GoFundMe page. Go to that link. You could donate materials such as PLA filament, fabric, broadcloth, sweater-style buttons, sewing elastics, disinfecting wipes, and face mask. Or you could build equipment using their free stethography files and watching an online sewing tutorial video. So folks, stay safe. I hope you enjoyed my interview with Ben Edie. And if you have ideas on who should be on the podcast, please reach out to me. I'm at Calgary _living on Insta, or shoot me an email, Brian, BRYON, @thehowardteam.net. Links are in the show notes.